Good day, good morning, good evening. I don't know. I don't know when you're listening to this, but I'm grateful that you are. So, welcome to another episode of On the Delo. This is episode 164. This episode we're going to call Show Me Your Circle, the truth about who you are becoming, and maybe a little bit of truth about who you were. I wanted to do a podcast, something that I had been thinking about as I go through the different seasons of life, which we've talked about a lot on here. Again, 164 episodes, folks. That is not anything to shake a stick at, right? Most people, side tangent, most people that do podcasts, I do believe, end up, I think, calling it quits after about maybe 20, 25. This is a labor of love, let me tell you. I love to talk. I love to be around those that love to listen. And that's why I do this. I do this to just create more of having recordings of myself talking about stuff that comes to mind through experiences that I have, books that I read, and memories that conjure things up as well. So let's have a little bit of fun with this. And I think a lot of you can relate, especially to your circle. And I want you to definitely show me your circle. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to know about your circle, who's in it, and what's going on. Who are the 5 people that you could call on if anything were to happen at any time? Do you have 5 people? Do you understand what that means? We're talking about 3 o'clock in the morning. You have a flat tire. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're an hour away. Who can you call? Because I can tell you that list gets smaller and smaller, especially as you get older. And you would think as you get older, and now this isn't everybody. This is not generically everybody, but I'm just saying, relatively as you get older, if you're lucky enough to be older and you're lucky enough to be around, the amount of people that are willing to do the amount of things for you, in some cases, does get smaller. Because here's what happens. And as I watch my parents get older, and I would be one of those 5 for any of my parents. If something was needed, I'm on a flight, I'm driving to Queen Creek, whatever it is, I'm going to take care of it for them. Because as I watch them get older and I hear all the things, you know how when you call, if you're in this experience, if you call an older parent and they like to talk a lot about their ailments, right? I don't want to call it complaining. I just want to call it, there's nothing really else going on. You know, you're retired. No, this isn't all parents. There's some parents that really keep themselves busy. Busy on what and whether they need to keep busy on it, that's another thing. For somebody, in your 50s or below, it's kind of like, I've got things to do to make sure that I can, call my children and talk about certain things like birds, construction, stuff like that. The news, which I refuse to get into with anybody or any of my parents. I just don't care. Love and light, baby, love and light. So I would be there at any time for any of my parents, and as they get older, there's more needs and more things that happen, but they're also, their friendship basis shrinks down. Unfortunately, we do live in a world where there's a lot of people that take advantage of people. If you know anything about the old days of AOL and the prince from Nigeria that wants to give you $1 million, that's not real. That's really not going to happen. So if you did send your bank account information to you're not getting any money if you have not figured that out yet. But it's okay, because it did seem very promising, and those emails, the way that they were typed out, And the attention to spelling, quite honestly, was worse than my spelling. And I am horrible at spelling. So when I knew that somebody couldn't spell as well as me, I knew that we had a problem. I knew that this was not real. Those are not your friends. It's very important when you listen to this podcast, you really think about who your friends are. So this is not just a podcast, folks. This is an exercise. This is something while you're walking, while you're exercising, while you're driving, whatever it is that you're doing while you're listening to this, okay? Take a deep breath and really exercise on the fact that you want to know who those 5 people are. And I think you'll be surprised. I don't think it's going to be your drinking buddy. I don't think it's going to be your yoga teacher. I don't think it's going to be the random couple that you see maybe every 6 months and go to dinner with. But it could be, right? You never know. And these are very high-profile jobs that these 5 people are caring for you, because it is a job description. It is something that, with love and light, right? They will be there to help you through thick and thin and all the other things. Now, not to get grim, but as we think about funerals and as we think about, the context of as we get older, right? There's in my opinion, 2 types of people. There's the people that have everybody come to the funeral, and there's the 6 degrees of separation, the people that just kind of show up to show their respects because somebody was a prominent business person in the world or did a lot of great things. And I think that's wonderful. I have a lot of friends that are like that. I have some friends that have passed away that are like that. I've been to those funerals, everything from the governor showing up to rock stars showing up to their funerals. Do you think that those people showing up to the funeral were in their basis of 5? Well, I can't answer that, but I can speculate, and I'm going to speculate no. So when we look at a lot of the things online and the people that we think that we respect or the people that we think have our back, take a moment to really think if that's true, if that really resonates with you and you think that they have any sort of a thought about you before, after, during any sort of connection, interaction, or friendship that you have. So I want to rewind this back a little bit, and we're going to talk about my personal story. I am a child of divorced parents. I grew up in Arizona. I was born here. My father, my mother, amazing people. But at the time, at the young age in their, early to mid-20s, marriage and a relationship just wasn't in the cards. And understanding how I acted in my 20s and part of my 30s, I get it. There's no fault. Like, you can't hold every marriage together just based on the fact that you think you love somebody. And, my mom and dad still to this day in their 70s, it was almost like the one that got away, but the one that got caught. So it's kind of like you catch something, you love it, and you love it so much you got to let it go. And that's pretty much the thing of it. The butterfly, you let it go, and you might see it, or you might have remembrances of the beauty of the butterfly. But that butterfly was not meant to be kept inside of a jar, right? And that's the same thing with my parents' first marriage. It just wasn't going to work. My dad was Mr. Colorado, bodybuilder, go figure, right? He had a temper. He had a lot of things going on, everything from throwing bouncers. Well, yeah, he was a bouncer. And he was throwing people's heads through the wall because they were talking to my mom. So you can only imagine starting out on the right foot from the very beginning. But they did well. They had me, right? What a gift. What a gift. That's why you're listening to this, is because my parents decided to have sex. Gross. And they made little David. Little Id is what I was called. Little Id. David Michael DeLorenzo, otherwise known as the Delo, born February 4th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, little did we know, or little do we understand when we were born, exactly how we're going to turn out. We may have some idea from our parents and from our upbringing, from what goes on, but we don't know what type of child we are going to be, how that child and how the relationships with other people that we grow up with, how that's going to be instrumental in tuning us into who we are in middle age, adulthood, elderly, all those sorts of things. There's obviously hereditary traits. There's all sorts of things that make us the people that we are. And albeit we are all individuals, we're pretty much all the same. You could probably, there's no science towards this. I am not a scientist. I don't know what I'm talking about. But for the purpose of this podcast, I'm going to guess there's probably 10 types of people out there, right? Just based on, hey, I'm type A, hey, I'm nonchalant, I'm aloof, I'm whatever it is. Call it 10, right? That's a nice even number. But there are trillions, I'm assuming trillions, I meant to look this up, of human individuals out there. We are all different. We all have our own journeys, our own minds, our own mindsets, all that sort of thing. So I'm a child, divorced parents. I had a great childhood. 0 complaints. Absolutely wonderful. If anything, I had it too easy. I had it so easy that sometimes divorce works in your advantage because everybody feels bad. They want to give you everything. They want to make sure you're coddled. And I got to do a lot of stuff that I don't think a lot of other people, didn't get to, that a lot of people didn't get to do. Grateful for that. So then comes my stepfather. And albeit we're not blood, he is my dad. He's absolutely my father. Been in my life since I was 2 years old. I'm 51. It's a kinship. It's a relationship. He was there for me through baseball, puberty, my first road race. We were just talking about the other day, the Peachtree Road Race out in Atlanta, Georgia. I think at the time, back in the 80s, 88, I think it was. They had like 40,000 runners even back then. I think it's like 140,000 now, but it's on the 4th of July. And he was just telling me the other day how he dropped me off at this race, and he was scared. He was like, what am I doing dropping off a 9-year-old or 10-year-old, whatever I was at the time, by himself? But he knew that I would figure it out, and I found my way. So it was that growth phase. It was a lot of the intricacies of my stepfather's traits and hospitalities all built into becoming who I am as well. And again, I know a lot of times when we talk about these things, and I'm sure you've heard a million of these podcasts, top 5 people or who you are. And we can, look, let's get all the generic stuff out here, right? If their habits are bad, their mindset, their energy, if they're always negative, this and that, it's always going to bleed into you and it's going to create something. We all get that. We all understand that. I'm talking from the perspective of, let's really, again, I'm talking to you listening. Let's just really take a deep breath. Right? And think about those 5 people. And I think a lot of times what eludes us is some of those 5 people may be the people that are the closest to you as far as your family. Now, some of us are not too favorable to our family or certain family members, and that is okay as well. Just because you're family, just because you're blood, does not mean that those 5 people are in your circle, because at the end of the day, for whatever reason, they're not driving an hour at 3 a.m. to go help you change your tire. They're just not going to do it. Now, could some of those 5 people be people that were in your life at an earlier season, right? But you only see or talk to a few times a year. But there's some sort of connection, some kinship, some almost like a blood pact that you didn't rub your blood together, right? It's almost like a thing where it's just understood. So when I moved to Atlanta as a kid with my stepdad and my mom, he got transferred out there. I worked for Motorola. I met the McGuires, and the McGuires are 3 boys. They were all, spread out through age. I was like right in the middle of all the ages of them. We just became best friends. I walked up the street. They said, "Hey, boy, what are you doing?" I said, "None of your business." And that was the start to one of the most beautiful friendships I still have today. When Kim and I got married, going on, I think it was like 10 years ago when we actually had the ceremony and all that, maybe 8 years ago. I should know this. Sorry, honey. The McGuires came out. Again, perfect example. Now with text messages, we probably talk a little more, but is that really talking? That's just kind of touching base saying, "Hey, everything good?" I love them. I love all three of those men now. And there's always a kinship. And if there's if there's ever anything needed from them, I'm going to be there for them. Because we shared a special moment early in our lives that allowed us to create habits and traits and ethical values within friendship between each other. It's a brotherhood. Again, my stepdad, not my blood. The McGuires, not my blood. He's my father. They're my brothers. And I think that's a lot of times, I think that's overlooked. My sister through my stepdad, she's my sister. There's no blood. My other sister, same thing. So we get so caught up in the intricacies of blood or not blood or this and that. And really it's irrelevant because it comes down to, do they really care? Are they really going to be there for you? And I can absolutely say that they are. Now, as we go through school and as we go through the pressures, and obviously this was so long ago for me, and again, I had a great childhood, no complaints, but I was still obviously trying to figure out who I was. I think obviously we all are, right? And you had the rich kids that lived in Horseshoe Bend, right? With the big houses, the big brick houses, the big yards, the big green grass, the country club, all that sort of thing. I was not that kid. I still grew up great. Don't get me wrong. I had a 3,000 square foot house back in the 80s, right? With big trees, quarter of an acre lot. I mean, we had trails. We had our own community pool, not the country club, but the community pool. And, they paid the $25 a year for the bracelet for me to go swim and go look at girls in bathing suits and do all that sort of stuff. I had a great childhood, great life. And I keep reiterating that because I mean it. And albeit these other kids that were wearing the Izod or the Polo or the members only, the first ones to get it, man, I got jealous. Man, I got so attached to the materialistic things of childhood, of what I really wanted, right? I look back on that and I laugh, and I still think that there's some relevancy to that, even for a 50 or 60-year-old man that, again, no offense. I had the sports car. I had to get rid of it. I hated it. I loved it in the moment. I hated it after the fact. And you still have that going on today where it's, the Gucci slippers to the high-end McLaren. Cool. That's your thing. Love it. Not my thing, right? We're all different. Who are the 5 people? Let's think back. Who are the 5 people? So I go through high school. I go through middle school. I go through all that. I was not a good-looking kid. More zits than craters on the moon, right? And my mom cut my hair in some sort of cowlick. So all I had was working out. I wanted to make some big muscles, and girls did like my big muscles, and I worked very hard at that to get attention. We all want some sort of attention. But even with that, I was not in the popular group. I did not fit in. I did not have any sort of group that I felt comfortable titling myself as part of, because I loved everybody. I loved hanging out with my musician friends. I loved hanging out with the popular people when they would let me in because I thought it was cool. There was a part of me that was mesmerized by it. Just like when I worked in the music business, part of me was mesmerized by, sitting at the table with Steven Tyler or sitting by the piano with Eddie Van Halen. Like, who wouldn't be mesmerized by that? You're trying so hard to not look, at least I was trying so hard not to look over exuberant about the presence of somebody that I was with. It's crazy when I go think back to it and I think about the life that I've had and what I'm doing now. And so there were those types of people, right? There were just the everyday nerds, the goth, you name it. They were all over. I loved them all. I had fun. I hung out with everybody. And I was that kid that ended up growing long hair. I passed on playing high school baseball. I looked like an 8th-year senior carrying my green Army bag, right, that I got at the Army surplus store. I think when I first got to the new high school, when I transferred back out to Arizona, people thought I was literally a man that didn't know where he was at and was camping at school. But they took me on. They loved me. I ended up finding my group, my crew out here. Again, you had the popular kids, you had the I was part of all of it, right? So we grow into that. We figure all that stuff out. We become who we become, and then we have the early essence of our career. We have college, which then turns into a job, which then you start to see a lot of people fade in, but mostly fade out. And as much as I like to reminisce, I watch old videos of, high school. Some of my friends have done very well. Some are very, high profile jobs and have done great. And I love them for that. Some have done good, and I love them for that. Maybe the target was to hold a great, steady job, have a big family, go to church, do all those things. I think that's absolutely amazing. And some people have been divorced 3 times, and that's okay too, right? We just don't know what is going on with people's lives within their lives. But what we can control is what's going on in our own lives. And my wife always jokes because she's like, how do you just still keep in touch with everybody? Like, how do you do that? And when you go back to social media and the aspect of how it's become so poisonous because we get so involved with people's opinions on stuff, which really doesn't matter because I don't think any of us really care other than the fact that we want to know who we're hanging out with sometimes. And we want to make sure people are cool, right? But I think everybody's entitled to their opinion. They're entitled to the respect that they deserve. And everybody's entitled to love, and the benefit of the doubt. The one thing that I do love about Facebook is being able to see and connect and be with people online and have that enjoyment, have a little brief interaction, and kind of reminisce back to the high school, the elementary school, even the middle school days, all those sorts of things. I love all those people. There's people I haven't seen in a decade, 2 decades, but I remember them from that time of my life, and I enjoyed our friendship then, and it's really cool to see them grow up and do all the cool things. I just met with my friend John Gotham, who we grew up, elementary and middle school and part of high school. He was my competitor when we would run the cross country for we had the Olympics. So we'd get these clay medals for winning. And I was always known as the fastest runner. And then John just came into puberty and he just wiped the concrete clean with me. And in the moment, it was like so detrimental. And everybody's like, oh, John, he's a good looking kid, tall, had the wavy hair that goes over the eyes sort of thing, right? And as I told you earlier, I was not a good looking dude. I was ugly, but I had muscles, right? And I was fast. But John was faster. But we created a friendship on that and beyond. And John flew out to Arizona just recently, and I sat down. We had 2 hours together. We caught up. We talked about each other. Now, is John in my top 5? Absolutely not. Like, why would John come out here at 3 a.m.? He might, because he does like to travel. He was telling me him and his wife got on a plane, went to Italy overnight, and then flew back, which is just crazy to me. Shows you how different a lot of people are. I was like, are you kidding me? The point being is John's not in my top 5. I'm not in his top 5. Why would we be, right? But there is a collection of energy and a benefit of the reminiscing and still enjoying those people in your life, just understanding what that relationship is about and how it's going to benefit you from an emotional and, let's just say, mindful way of understanding them in your life and others in your life. So let me explain that. Every person you interact with, every person you have interacted with, there's something that goes on within your brain when you go to see them. You evaluate that relationship. You figure out a way, whether you know you're doing it or not, you're doing it, right? So think about this. You're going to go have coffee with Sue. You haven't seen Sue in a year. You and Sue have always been tight. You used to do all this stuff together, right? And a lot of times, time will just fade and but you can always catch up where you left off. But before you're going to go have coffee with Sue, you're realizing that, how does this person fit into my life now? And how did they fit in back then? And what is it that I'm doing? Why am I having coffee with this person? How can we talk about stuff? How do we resonate? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with every relationship, every business transaction, even with the people that you go meet. Are these people just transactions, or are they your friends that you're transacting with because you want to sincerely help each other? The networking, the relationship basis of really promoting somebody. And people that know me, they know this about me. I love to, let's just say, promote other people more than myself at times, almost to my detriment. But it makes me feel good, and I love it. There's really no detriment there. I think it's just a good thing in general. I love to help others, especially people that I trust and that I value. So when we're looking at, as we get older and we grow, and we're looking at the people in our lives, we're looking at their values. And values can be a whole number of things. I'm not going to get into that. We look at, where are they mentally based on your interactions? Where are they spiritually, financially? Yeah, you don't want to necessarily, you're not looking to judge people. It's not a judgment. It's more of a resonation. Like, is it resonating? Resonation? I think that's a word. It could be another Deloism. But is this reacting with me in a good way? They're not coming to you to just ask for money, every 5 minutes, and they don't really care about you. We all have those people. And remember, some friendships just aren't meant to last forever, and that's okay. Appreciate the moment, put it in a time capsule, move on. It's the same with dating and relationships. It's no different with friends. No different. You can always love people from a distance, for sure. I need a drink. So know that when you outgrow people, they may have outgrown you as well. And know that nothing is personal. Nothing in life is ever personal. You're the only thing that is personal. You're personal within you. And if you have acted in a way to cancel a friendship, that's just where the fork in the road came. That was just what was meant to happen. I think a lot of times we all get so caught up in, I wish I wouldn't have said that or wouldn't have done that. Well, why did you? Was it a mistake? Think about it. So as we are moving into another phase of relationships, we're always evolving our circle. We're always building. And maybe you're 5 people. If you haven't thought of them now, I would love to know who they are. Please comment. Tell me who your 5 people are. But remember, those 5 people can be changed at any time. And maybe some of you have more than 5 people. If you're fortunate enough to have that, it's not that you're any better or any worse. But you have to ask yourself, how many relationships can I maintain within that circle? So keep building, keep finding those wonderful, beautiful souls, that positive motivation. And remember, just because somebody's not in that circle of 5 doesn't mean that you don't have other circles out there. And those other circles that you can dip into, right? That will bring you positive energy, that will bring you a relationship, that will actually give you part of their soul for an hour, a month or whatever it is. You can count on that, because we all need those outside resources. And albeit that person personally may not be in your life day in and day out and forever, and you probably don't feel too comfortable calling them to go change your tire at 3 a.m., but you do know that you can talk to them about other stuff and get a very unbiased and uncensored idea of what they think about a situation. And whether that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's just something else to listen to for you to evaluate what you feel is right or wrong. That being said, I'll end on the fact that we do have our Built Different mastermind. And that's the thing. It's about groups and communities and bringing people such as yourself and others and people that you may know to come be a part of that. Get that hour a week. Get that personalized attention from somebody like Jeremy and myself, because we're here to listen. We're here to help. We're here to give you unbiased, let's just say, advice, passion, all those sorts of things that we can help with. So if you haven't thought of your 5 people yet, think about that after this podcast. Definitely audit your relationships, protect your energy. Don't be afraid to level up. Don't be afraid to be like, I need to really kick this into gear. I ain't getting any younger. Because tomorrow always deserves better than yesterday. It just does. Because that's what we have. We have right now. We have right now. And if we're fortunate enough, we have tomorrow. So until next time, we've got a couple guests coming on. I'll be filming those next week. A couple more solos. I want to talk about type A personalities. And I'm going to talk about my... I know a lot of people are going to either find this entertaining or they're going to find it helpful. I'm going to talk about my hair regimen. That's right. Delo loves his hair, and so do you. So until next time, please give it a 5-star. Check out the links below for the Mastermind community. If you need insurance, obviously I'm your guy. Any sort of insurance, I'll write it, baby. Let's go. Especially if it is a good relationship. And anything else you may need, just reach out. Happy to do this. Excited to be here. And until next time, peace out.